Hello. Welcome to another photo critique. My name is Mike Lloyd. I run a multi-six-figure boudoir studio in Silicon Valley, California, and I love photography. I'm also a certified Professional Photographers of America print competition judge, and I've judged competitions all over the country, which is pretty darn cool to see all these artists submitting work to get constructive feedback. And as I've mentioned in other videos, I always recommend submitting your images to any kind of critique or competition you can possibly get your images into, as long as you can either get some sort of accolade for winning, which is a great way to tell people you're awesome, or you can get constructive feedback. Not just, good job, here's a score, but here's what you did well, here's how you can improve. So I'm gonna go through a handful of different images, talk about what the photographers did well, what they could do to improve on technique-wise, with storytelling, with editing, all the things, and you get an opportunity to learn from it. And then at the end, I will tell you how to submit your own images for a critique that you can also get great feedback from. Let's dive in. Figure out a way to differentiate yourself in a market. And Elizabeth, you're doing something amazing here because you've totally carved out a niche for yourself. And as long as you keep this going, and you become known as the photographer who serves this market, you're going to be unstoppable. And I think it's really important for anyone who is just getting started or trying to scale. Maybe you've hit a plateau and you just can't seem to grow. You have to stand for something and identify yourself as a photographer who does a very specific thing. And I know it sounds kind of scary because you're like, well, if I only focus on A, am I going to lose B through Z? No, you're not. You're going to get every single one of A, which is really cool and probably going to be enough to sustain you, but you will absolutely get some crossover. You know, not everybody that I photograph is who I'm speaking to, who I'm marketing to, but I also just do different kinds of marketing campaigns. Right? So I'm going to speak to the 55-year-old empty nester differently than the 30-year-old bride, differently than the maternity client, right? So figure out exactly who you want to serve and what you want to accomplish, and then go from there. So again, I think it's great that you're carving out this niche for yourself. Okay, so my first reaction when I see this image, your composition is good. I'm digging the lines here. It's a great triangle. It's balanced. You've got space around the frame. Nothing is cropped in too tight, which is amazing. I like the rim light. You've got the separation, the emotion. You've got a lot of really good things going on. One thing I'm not sure about is up here. It almost looks like there was a slow shutter or a double exposure or something. I can't quite tell, but that kind of bugs me. And the background is still got a lot of texture in it. I can tell it's a little bit out of focus, but a shallower depth of field will really help take away some of these distracting lines back here and the texture in the bricks, and bring your focus to the foreground. Because it looks like they're lit from up top, like this way, right? Because you can see where the highlight is and you can see the shadows on the back sides here, but they're actually darker than the background. So they don't stand out from the scene quite as much as they could. But again, I love the pose. I love the mood, the feeling. Her expression is gold. I think that's fantastic. And the fabric down here, I'm not sure what's going on with that. Seems a little distracting. Yeah, so if they were brighter, more directly lit, and then you had a little bit darker and less focused background, they would really pop in this image. But I'm sure they're going to be stoked with it when they see it. Okay, so same thing with this one. The crop down here right through the thigh is kind of weird because you're cutting off her knee as well. They're also the weight of the image down the center here. They're not quite centered up in the frame, but they're also not on a third. So the crop is just a little bit off there, because you could frame them between these windows here and use that as almost a natural frame in the background to create some cool shapes around them. Also, you've got a lot of light in the background, and they're a lot darker in the foreground. And there's just so much negative space out here that's brighter than them. It's hard to stay focused on this couple. But I love the expression. It's so good. Like you're totally providing a space for them to be them. That's amazing. Yeah, so fixing that crop. And if you were to stand back or move them closer to you a little bit so that they would be positioned in between the windows to create a natural frame, I think that could be a really, really powerful compositional tool for you. I like this one too. This one's really balanced. You're like good amount of weight. So if you like split the frame apart, you've got an even amount of weight on all the sides. You've got a good diagonal here. The composition is fantastic. Good separation from the background. I like the shadows on the ground. Good expression. I like the arm here. Hand on the hair looks good. This arm is perfect. There's not a ton of separation here. And we're losing a bit of her face in the shadow on this side. You can tell by where the shadows are. You've got one light coming in. Okay. This way, and another one coming in this way. But it looks pretty even all the way across. Yeah, because you can see the shadow right here. So light coming in from two different directions, and that's like where it's splitting is right there. Okay. So I feel like I'd want to see more light on the side here. And if you change the angle of the lights, right? Because if you look at the background too, you've got a pretty even gradient that comes down this way. And then the natural vignette, which I think is a great compositional tool here. But to me, it feels too even, kind of too flat here, but we're losing like the face part in the shadow, and the focus is like neck and cheek just because of how bright that is in the image compared to the rest of her. But I like the coloration. I like the texture. The exposure is good otherwise. I think it's just the amount of light that hits the front of her face versus the side. There's just a lot of skin right here, but overall solid photo. So you totally nailed this pose. Gorgeous shape, expression. You got the good separation here. That was perfect. You can see the lips. The hands look super comfortable and just like perfect shape in here. You can see a little more of this thigh and nothing on this side, but it's like really, really close to being perfectly symmetrical. It is cropped way too tight though, because there's like no space here. There's a little bit of separation here, but her bottom is like right at the bottom of the frame. It is pretty tight. Yeah, if you gave her more space in this photo on the outside edges, I think it would breathe a lot better. The lighting's great. I'm sure she loves how her deltoids and traps are looking right now. But yeah, the expression, the hair, everything else looks great. It's just cropped too tight. Great choice in lighting. So I love the directional side lighting. Obviously, I'm kind of partial to that look. I'm digging the pose here. I think she's turned very well. I love the colors in her hair, the way that pops. I like the separation here, and the shape of her face. A couple things. Again, it comes down to the crop. Like it's pretty tight because you can see some separation back here, but just a little bit. And I think I would either want to see more separation to have like a whole triangle back there, or cropping like here so there's no gap at all. And same thing up here. I would brighten that just a little bit so you can see more of that hair separated from the background, because there is a little bit of separation there, but she almost fades in. And then the crop in the belly button is kind of a weird place to crop. I'd go a little bit lower or a little bit more above that. And the thing with this kind of lighting is the weight of the image, like where you place the subject when you frame the image is not necessarily where those lines are going to be when you take the photo. So what I mean is, like, you've got her down the center, right? The highlight, the face down her body here is down the center, but then you've got this arm over here and you've got tons of black space over here. So that's why I think if you were to move that crop over, it would balance it. So the center of your image would really be like a little bit to the left instead of here, shifting it over just a little bit. And then this weight here will balance this weight here. And this is a thing that I still have to keep in mind also when I'm shooting. And I don't know how many tens of thousands of images like this that I've taken, right? Because this is the only style of boudoir that I shoot. So she is framed up perfectly for like a normal lighting setup. But because only this side of her is lit and this side is not, then you have to shift the center of the image to compensate for where the new weight is. And you can see it's not quite center. It's a little bit off to the side, but it's not on a third either. You're like halfway in between there. Okay, you don't want to break the emotion to fix the pose. I don't know how to get to do that without breaking anything yet. Okay, so what I do to make sure that that isn't going to be an issue is I will get the whole scene like set up and totally ready to go and get them in a position that no matter what happens, I'm going to be framed properly. Go from there. And I know there are times where no matter what, something happens and you have to just like throw the camera up real quick and take the shot. And I would rather have that emotion in an image than a technically perfect photo. If it's being judged for a print competition, that's not necessarily the focus, but providing that to your client, they don't care if your center line's a little bit off or if, right, any of the things that I've been talking about. They're things that I strive for and that you can strive for in your shoots, but having that real emotion and that connection, that is going to resonate so much more with your clients, and that's what they're going to buy. And I think the only other thing with this one is her hair covering her face right here. It's like sort of covering the face and sort of not. I would want to see it one way or the other. So like have all of her face exposed right here, or just bring her hair all the way over and not have it at all. But it's like a weird halfway point down there. And that wraps up another photo critique. Thanks for tuning in to this one. I hope you learned something valuable from it. And I would love for you to submit your own images also. You can email them to mike@boudoirguild.com. You can remain anonymous if you'd like. Just don't put a big annoying watermark in the middle of your photo, and I will include you in a future competition. You can send me multiple images if you'd like, and I can split them up over multiple shows. I will figure out once I have all the images before each critique. And I tend to not look at the images before a critique because I want to be surprised and get the first impression. Because like I mentioned in the video, first impression, impact is the number one category when we are judging photos. Like, does this actually jump out at me? Does it pop? Does it get my attention enough to want to keep looking? So I want that surprise, but send them all in. I'd love to see your work and feature you here. I have plenty of other videos too on how to edit, how to light, how to get clients in front of your camera so they'll pay you to do all of these things. And the boudoirguild.com is full of videos that really dive in and teach you all of this magic. You are amazing. I'll see you inside.